At this time, I'd like to introduce to you flautist Bill Nye.
Thank you.
It is an absolute honor and truly one of my highest privileges to stand here and to welcome all of you to the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. This morning, we gather here to commemorate the opening of our Veterans Cemetery. And as we do this, we acknowledge our obligation to our men and women who have served our nation and their families. That everlasting debt has long been ingrained in our nation and was first made clear at the end of the Civil War when President Abraham Lincoln clearly stated, "Let us strive to bind up our nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, his widow, and his orphan." Everybody who worked on this project, who waited for this opening, and is witnessing this ceremony today, understands and feels that this cemetery is a prime example of we, the people, fulfilling that obligation. For too long, this cemetery was just a vision that was possessed by only a few veterans and their family members. Fortunately, those veterans utilized a quality that many of them probably learned on this same ground here at the former Fort Ord. That is, they never gave up. Our community leaders, who you will be hearing from today, then did what they do best. They listened up and they stepped up. And then our Central Coast community did what it does best. We came together, we worked together, we gave together, and together we made that vision of this cemetery the reality that we see today. So during this opening ceremony of the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery, we are humbled and we are so proud knowing that when we consecrate this ground, we continue our never-ending obligation to always serve those who served us. Here today, we have many people who have served. Community members, local elected leadership, state and federal representatives, and most importantly, our veterans organizations, and our veterans and their family members. At this time, I must acknowledge the local leadership besides our guest speakers that are present. Please hold your applause until the list has been completed. Vice Admiral Ronald Rout, retired. General William Mullen, retired. Colonel Lawrence Brown. Colonel Nicole Ballier. Former Secretary of Defense, Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Leon Panetta. The Panetta Institute for Public Policy Director, Sylvia Panetta. California Assembly Member, Luis Alejo. Monterey County Supervisors, Fernando Armenta, John Phillips, Simone Salinas, Jane Parker, and Dave Potter. City of Marina Mayor, Bruce Delgado. City of Pacific Grove Mayor, Bill Camp. Sand City Mayor, David Pendergrass. City of Carmel by the Sea Mayor, Steve Dallas. City of Delray Oaks Mayor, Jerry Edelin. City of Salinas Mayor, Joseph Gunter. City of Seaside Mayor Pro Tem, Ian Oglesby. City of Marina Mayor Pro Tem, Frank O'Connell. Pacific Grove City Council Member, Casey Lucius. Monterey City Council Member, Alan Hoffa, and Marina City Council Member, Gail Morton. Now, let us also acknowledge the following organizations that led the charge for the necessary and significant financial and community support for the establishment of the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. The Central Coast Veterans Cemetery Foundation, the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery Capital Campaign, the United Veterans Council, and every other organization and every single person who donated and gave to the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. Please give them, everybody, a round of applause. Thank you. On behalf of the California Department of Veterans Affairs, at this time, let us all also please thank those who organized and set up this ceremony, and if the organizing team could please stand and be recognized. And of course, we thank our volunteers, our volunteer writers groups for being here today, and finally, we recognize all of the veterans, their families, that this cemetery will honor for centuries to come. As we begin this ceremony, let me thank you in advance for your respectful and appropriate participation in this solemn but celebratory event. We ask for your patriotic honoring of those who sacrificed to serve the needs of our nation's defense. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, would all of you who are able to please stand and remain standing for the following events: the posting of our colors and service flags, the Pledge of Allegiance, the National Anthem, and the invocation. Please stand. At this point, I would ask American Legion District 28 Honor Guard to please post the flags of our nation's services. At this time, I would ask the California National Guard Honor Guard to please post the colors. Please remain standing for our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chaplain Luis Rosa, Commander, U.S. Navy.
Nearly 100 years ago in 1917, Camp Gingling was purchased for the purpose of training field artillery and other maneuvers. Later, a few decades to be called Fort Ord during World War II. I think it is proper and fitting that we should dedicate and consecrate a portion of this ground for the purpose of laying to rest those who served our nation with honor, our veterans. This is an invocation as well as a consecration, and I ask that you hear these words of both. Good people, we now consecrate this portion of land and forever set apart from all profane and common uses this ground to be the resting place of the dead. The blessing of God Almighty be ever upon this place, and sanctify and keep it holy, that it may be a fit resting place for the bodies that served our great nation with honor. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day for this momentous occasion. I bring to you today a welcome from the City of Seaside and the Seaside City Council. The City of Seaside has always been a stalwart supporter of this endeavor from the very beginning on this incredible journey. The City of Seaside and the County of Monterey set aside these lands, took them out of production, and set them aside for this important venture. It's taken a long time to get here, but it's appropriate. It's the right thing to do. And we've stood steadfast in that effort to make this happen. And it's such a glorious day to see this happen. The appropriate recognition for our veterans, the appropriate handling of the remains of our veterans and those who have served and given the ultimate sacrifice is the ultimate goal here. And as you see, it's a wonderful setting. It's a beautiful place to rest, and it does embody the spirit and the vitality of our nation, and it does embody the spirit of our veterans community here in the Central Coast. All this is made possible by such an enormous team of veterans, of citizens, of elected officials, of the cities and the county to make this happen, and to have everybody here today to recognize this as a commemoration and a consecration of this ground for, as the chaplain put it, profane and common uses, to exclude those from this wonderful place and dedicate it to the memory of our veterans. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for your constant support, and I want to thank you for your continued support. We're not done. We've got a lot of work yet to go, and City of Seaside is ready, and we're sure that you are. Thank you.
At this point, I would like to introduce the following speakers and ask that they come to the podium right after the other is done speaking in the following order. California Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary Dr. Vito Ambisciani. California State Assembly Member Mark Stone. California State Senator Bill Monty. United States Congressman Sam Farr. And the United States Department of Veterans Affairs National Cemetery Administration Director George Eisenbach. Please welcome California Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary Dr. Vito Ambisciani.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Governor Edmund G. Brown Jr. and the California Department of Veterans Affairs, I welcome you to the grand opening of our new California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. This is California's third state-run veterans cemetery. Our oldest is adjacent to our Yountville Veterans Home in Napa County and dates from the 1890s. We also have our Northern California Veterans Cemetery in Igo, up north in Shasta County, which opened in 2005. The seeds of the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery were planted in 1992 when it became clear that the Fort Ord Army Post was destined for closure. The Retired Officers Association in Monterey proposed the idea of a cemetery on these grounds to the United Veterans Council, or UVC, which then asked 5 local veterans and tasked them with the mighty task of making this veterans cemetery a reality. Those 5 veterans are well known to many of you from the Monterey area: William Bill Williams, Jack McDonough, Charles Hopper, Malcolm Giblin, and our own Jack Stewart. During the 1990s, these veterans enlisted the support of several politicians, notably State Senator Henry J. Mello, State Assemblyman Bruce McPherson, then Congressman Leon Panetta, and Congressman Sam Farr. Initially, despite their best efforts, they gained little ground in convincing either the federal government or the state of California to establish a veterans cemetery here. Yet the strong and vibrant veterans community in Monterey remained determined. 5 years ago, momentum began to build, and finally, in 2013, the necessary funding for this cemetery came together. The National Cemetery Administration of the United States Department of Veterans Affairs approved $6.8 million. The California State Legislature supplied $2 million with support from Senator Monning and Assembly Speaker Emeritus John Perez. The Capital Campaign and the Packard Foundation provided $614,000. And the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery Foundation provided $200,000. These efforts are the very definition of collaboration and teamwork, and thank you to everyone involved. I also want to thank all of our CalVet staff members whose work brought us this far and will carry the cemetery into the future. Mr. Dan Fahey, Assistant Deputy Secretary for our Cemeteries and Memorials, and Daria Mayer, the manager of this cemetery. After construction began in March 2015, CalVet worked closely with the Monterey County Military and Veterans Office to receive and process applications. It took no time at all for CalVet and county staff to be overwhelmed by the community's interest in this cemetery. This year, as we neared completion of construction, we found that we had additional needs to support operations here. Many organizations responded, and now we are extremely grateful to the Marina Foundation, the Fleet Reserve Association of Monterey, American Legion Post 31, the United Veterans Council, and many individuals and other groups in the Monterey area who stepped forward to provide us with all the flags you see flying here today, the benches in the committal shelter, the beautiful Navy bell we will use for all future Navy services, and many other items integral to the proper functioning of this sacred space. And thank you especially to Steve Emerson, President of the Marina Foundation, for this critical support. Now that opening day is finally here, I want to talk for a moment about the extraordinary interest in the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery since construction began. Since July 2015, before we even opened, we've received more than 1,000 applications for interment for veterans and their dependents who intend to make the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery their final resting place. As of today, our opening day, CalVet has approved applications for 1,000 veterans, 750 spouses, and 5 children of veterans. This is truly remarkable. We've approved applications for veterans who served in nearly every major American conflict from the Spanish-American War to the current wars in Iran and Afghanistan. Our Spanish-American veteran was a German immigrant who joined the Marine Corps in 1897 and served with the Marine Detachment on the USS Baltimore in 1898 during the Battle of Manila Bay. Even a tiny sampling of our applications demonstrates the vast historical breadth that makes our new cemetery a landmark starting today. Our World War II veterans include Marines who fought across the Pacific, airmen who flew the hump over the Himalayas, soldiers from the famed 442nd Regiment who fought in Italy, nurses who patched up our wounded and cared for the ill in France, England, and the United States, and sailors who brought us victory at sea. We are honored today to have several World War II veterans on hand, including several women who served in the Navy, the Women's Army Corps, and the Marine Corps. Thank you very much for your service and for gracing us with your presence here today. These grounds will also become the home for hundreds of veterans who served in conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, the Dominican Republic, Grenada, Panama, the Persian Gulf, Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan, throughout the entire Cold War, and in numerous other expeditions around the world. This is truly sacred ground where for generations to come, people will remember and honor the brave men and women who answered our nation's call and served with honor. As honored as Calvet is to provide a final resting place for our veterans, we are also proud to serve hundreds of their spouses. Many of the spouses were from the Monterey area, but some also come from Austria, England, France, Germany, Japan, and Korea. Spouses deserve our deepest gratitude, for it's often the spouse or partner who provides the frontline care to veterans struggling with post-traumatic stress, depression, traumatic brain injury, and other physical and mental wounds of military service and war. In addition, we've approved applications for 5 children of veterans who either died before the age of 21 or were permanently disabled. We are honored to provide them a final resting place alongside their parents. As we open with a distinguished clientele of soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, coasties, and merchant mariners, we think to the future. The plans for this cemetery call for 11 phases that will expand gradually into the very large area behind me. Today is the first day of our cemetery's perpetual life, and shortly we will begin operations by interring one of the founding fathers of this cemetery, Major William Williams, and his wife, Maria Williams. In closing, I want to thank again all of those who made the cemetery a reality, to thank the Calvet staff, especially Assistant Deputy Secretary Daniel Fahey and Daria Maher, our new cemetery manager, who have worked so hard to support this project against numerous obstacles, and to thank all of you who have shown up today to show your respect and your support for veterans and their families. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Mark Stone, and I have the distinct honor of representing the Monterey Bay area in the California State Assembly. And today before you, we have former Secretary of Defense, we have many elected officials. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all here on this hallowed ground to support, to honor, and to provide for members of the armed services and for our veterans. Veterans I see standing around the area today, veterans I see in the audience, we are here for you, for our members of the armed services. Because the history of the U.S. Armed Forces and the history of the Monterey area are intertwined and have been for generations. We have been working to try and provide services and benefit for all who have served in our armed forces. We do that with the clinics here. We do that with the Veterans Transition Center. We try and close the gaps with mental health services, welcoming everyone here. And yet still many of our veterans don't feel that they belong in our communities, don't feel that they belong in our society once they have offered themselves to the ultimate sacrifice to protect all of us and all of what we stand for. So the cemetery today is the beginning of the first phase is done. The next phases are yet to come, but the beginning of that completion of our obligation to those who have served us so well and so long in the United States Armed Forces. We're here to open this cemetery, and by opening the cemetery today and recognizing the completion of the first phase, this allows us to start to open up the next phases and bring those who want to come, those who deserve to be in this beautiful area for their final resting days. So congratulations to those who have fought for 24 years, Jack and your crew, for those veterans who have been persistent and, yes, patient, and thank you for your patience, to get this done as truly a federal, state, and local partnership. This cemetery today shows what we can do if we stay together, if we work together, if we meet that obligation, and it's showing the rest of the state. There are other parts of the state who are looking to the success here in Monterey and want to try and replicate what we have done, what we have accomplished. So we stand as a beacon for those who want to respect and honor their veterans as well. Congratulations. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Bill Monning, and here we are. The dream of so many, the work of so many, and now we are here at the final resting place for those who served our nation with dignity, pride, commitment, and sacrifice. I want to offer my welcome as well and my thanks to Secretary of California's Veteran Agency, Secretary Dr. Vito Imbiciani. Thank you for joining us today and for the support of all of your staff. And to Director George Eisenbach of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, who we'll be hearing from shortly, Director of the National Cemetery Administration. To Secretary Leon and Sylvia Panetta, thank you for joining us today and for your leadership and ongoing support for this project. And thank you, Jimmy Panetta, for being the perfect master of ceremonies for this effort today. As you know, Jimmy Panetta, along with Mayor Jason Burnett, headed up one of the final toughest pushes to secure the community funding to match federal and state resources. We gather today to mark the completion of this phase of the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. We celebrate the achievement, but more importantly, we acknowledge the service of all veterans and dedicate this final resting place to honor their service. And what a quiet and beautiful place this is, and to think of how many powerful moments will be shared here as loved ones inter a loved one, and as family members and loved ones visit those whose remains will be laid to rest here amidst the oaks and the hills and in sanctuary from the noise and disruption of daily life. I've had the honor and indeed the responsibility of fighting to secure the support of the state of California for this project. Establishment of this cemetery has been one of my highest priorities during my service in the legislature. The pathway has not always been easy. I authored and we passed 6 different pieces of legislation and secured a major budget allocation that was referenced that would not have been possible without the support of Governor Jerry Brown, CalVet, the leadership of my colleagues in both houses, and the partnership of so many in Sacramento. Each step of the way, we've relied on the support of Congressman Sam Farr and his team, the National Veterans Administration, as I mentioned, my colleagues in the legislature, but most importantly, always, the driving force of this achievement has been the local veterans community and veterans organizations that never took no for an answer. We hit some cul-de-sacs along the way. We were told more than once that we either hadn't positioned ourselves, hadn't raised the necessary money, there could not be a national cemetery here, the regulations could not be bent. But the persistence and the commitment of the local veterans community is what got us here today and will continue as we build from these 17 acres into the 78 acres envisioned for this cemetery. What's significant about today in these 17 acres is that the basic infrastructure is now installed. The administration building, the columbaria, the committal area. This infrastructure will serve as we build out into future phases. So in many ways, while this is designated phase one, it is a foundation from which the growth of this cemetery project will proceed. Others have acknowledged other political leaders who have helped along the way, and I just have to acknowledge my staff and my team, both Sacramento and in the district, who also labored and often protected me from the bad news until it was sometimes too late. But everyone here, if you've served in the military, the fundamental principle of successful military service is teamwork. And that became contagious from our veterans community as that teamwork spread to our local partners, the city of Seaside, of Marina, with Fora, with the county of Monterey. I remember there was one 7 or 10 day window there. We had to thread a needle of title transfers from Seaside, Monterey County, to Fora, to the state of California. And we were told we had 10 days to do that. A lot of people bent rules so that we could succeed in meeting those deadlines. There are so many who can rightfully take pride and credit for this achievement. And the challenge when we name names is that we omit some. The organizations that have been critical partners, again, it's through organization that we give voice to individuals. It's through organization, both local, nonprofit, and governmental organization. That's how we shape the futures that we want. Our country faces a very tough dilemma right now. There are those who suggest that government is the problem. And I think what we show today is that government, it is we, the people, who shape the vision and give it life and give it shape. And that's what we celebrate today. We will soon be seeing a dedication of a memorial wall. You'll see it, it's between here and the entrance, and that will also be a place to memorialize those whose remains have been laid to rest at sea or were not recovered and can be memorialized on that memorial wall. It has particular significance. My father's name will be on that wall, and it'll provide a place for us. I also want to acknowledge the family of Major William Williams, who are here today, as his remains will be the first to be laid to rest, and so appropriate, as he was one of the original spark plug veterans who pushed the vision, who pushed the dream, and who have us here today. It's now going to be my honor to invite my colleagues, Assemblymember Stone and Assemblymember Luis Alejo, to come forward. And we'd also ask the Secretary to come forward, California Secretary of California Veterans Affairs, as we present this legislative resolution. Oh, wow. Oh. Here, you stand in the middle here. Put your hand on it, Luis. Okay. Who's got a camera? There they are. This legislative resolution will be posted in the administration building where families will gather. And in this resolution, we do try to acknowledge all of the organizations who pulled together to make today possible. So thank you all for being here today, and let's continue to build this dream to the reality it becomes today and as it will grow out from here. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Sam Farr, and I'm not up for re-election. I can't believe it. This is a wow moment for me, wow week for this area. What a great day for veterans. We have been working for a long time to really establish the former Fort Ord as a veterans community, a veterans village. And it takes all kinds of components. It takes housing for veterans that are homeless. It takes educational institutions like the Monterey Peninsula Community College and Cal State Monterey Bay to further their education. It takes treatment centers. It takes clinics to take care of the veterans. And all of those things are built and are many of them dedicated this week. And I hope you will come on Friday for the dedication of the first ever DoD VA planned clinic for both active duty military, their spouses, children, and veterans. But today is about what happens when you elect people. Talk a lot about elections coming up, and I think what you see here is that elections have consequences. When you elect people that really listen to the people and get the job done despite all odds. And this was a difficult situation. When Leon was Congress member and the base closed and I was running for his seat, we were told that there's no way that a federal veterans cemetery could be built here because we already had one in Santa Anella and there was space available there, and the hard, fast rules that within 70 miles of a crow flies, you can't build another national veteran cemetery. We tried to bend those rules. We tried to make it rather than a circle and oblong. We said we can't take credit for the ocean and all those things. We couldn't get the VA to bend. They said, well, there's Plan B. You can go to the state of California, any states. They can build a cemetery, looks like, feels like, tastes like, is like exactly the national cemetery, only they maintain it, not the federal government. So Plan B was put into operation, but guess what? California said, we don't do this either. We take care of soldiers when they retire in soldiers' homes, and we have a lot of other vet programs where we don't do cemeteries. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, you see what happens when you elect the right people and they get results. And today is accomplishment of that. You know, when I was looking into what the federal government, how they got into the cemetery business and how we could sort of utilize history to consecrate this place. I mean, this has been a military base for a long time. In fact, California began here, and it began with a military regiment of Spanish soldiers. And we have the longest operating military base in the United States at the Presidio. So I looked into what it took, and you know, it's interesting. The federal government got involved with cemetery business after the Civil War. There were some 300,000 bodies, and nobody had an ability to collect, to identify, to bury these bodies. And Congress enacted in the 1860s, after the Civil War, appropriated money in the committee that I sit on, same subcommittee on Veterans Affairs, and with the military services to build cemeteries. Now, there's a fight in those days just like there is today. It was land use fights over, is this federal property, is this state property, is this county property, and the war had gone on among all those entities. Where are we going to build cemeteries for the southern soldiers versus the northern soldiers? They invented the ID tag, the dog tag at that time to identify bodies. And so Congress has been actively involved ever since the Civil War in trying to work out all of those jurisdictional issues. There have been 73 national cemeteries. Most of those cemeteries are around battlefields. There are the state maintains. The federal government still maintains 24 military cemeteries in 10 different foreign countries. One of the first to ever have a federal military cemetery was Mexico City after the Spanish-American War. Today there are 95 state cemeteries like this, state veteran cemeteries, in 47 states. But the local cemetery history doesn't really begin here. It begins with the Presidio in Monterey. And it was interesting to find out that when that cemetery opened in the Presidio, now called the DLI, it was a small cemetery, but it has an incredible military history. The first soldier that was buried in that cemetery was Private George Johnson. He died in 1904. He was a black cavalryman in the 9th U.S. Cavalry, known as the Buffalo Soldiers. He came here with his with the 9th Cavalry to refit and to rest after a prolonged combat in Cuba and in the Philippines. The cemetery is full of very famous soldiers that came to the Monterey Bay Area, including one remarkable one is that the Japanese prisoner of war died in a prison and was buried at the Presidio in 1945. It was closed after the Korean War because there was no more space available. So in essence, I think that's when the local veterans began thinking, what about continuing the opportunity to have burials here locally? So today we really began a new chapter in our long military history here on the peninsula. A place where I brag that California and this great state of California made all the first real estate transactions, the first banks, the first jails, first governments, everything, first constitution of the state, all began in Monterey. And ever since Fort Ord closed, the vision has been let's really keep the military presence here. And you know, I think we don't think about it, but that military presence has made this such a special place to live. Fort Ord was the first military base in the United States under President Truman that was integrated. We had a segregated army during World War II. The DLI hired host country nationals to come here from countries all over the world in the languages they were teaching, to teach their native language. They diversified us. And the Naval Postgraduate School was that. It was a school. It was a postgraduate school. It was a higher education, places you could get master's degrees and PhDs. The Navy educated us. And you think about the quality of life on this Monterey Peninsula if it hadn't been for the presence of the military and the military history here. I think we would be a locked-up, gated community, much like the Palm Springs area of California or Newport Harbor and stuff like that. So the military history here is part of our ethos, part of our culture, and part of what makes us such a special area to live in. And I think it's only fitting that we have a permanent sort of, you get born here in the hospitals, and when you pass away, you can get buried here. From cradle to the grave, we have all the services. And as we build this Veterans Village at the former Fort Ord, let us always remember that that those who have done service for us, that we're going to continue to serve them. So I want to thank you all, because the politics this wouldn't be, and I'm not talking about partisan politics, I'm talking about the involvement in the political system. It wouldn't have happened if you people didn't exercise that wonderful privilege, the only privilege you have as a citizen of the United States that non-citizens can't have, which is the power to vote. Your participation in the voting process elected the people who carried out your message, who when you organized and asked and petitioned your government, let's have a veteran cemetery here on the peninsula. We don't want to go to Santanella or other places. We want to continue the history of the wonderful military presence that's been here for all the services. So as I say goodbye to elections and elected office, I hope if there's anything else that I'd like to have you do, it's remember to vote this year. So thank you, and thank my colleagues. I mean, Bill Monning and Mark Stone were remarkable, because we couldn't have gotten this done without the state finally getting on board and appropriating the money. We have a program in the federal government. When the states ask, we respond. In phase one, we've responded with about $6 or $7 million. In phase two, when the state asks, we'll respond likely. But it's that ask that's so important. And I want to just say that I have several staff members. One of them who can't be here today, my chief of staff, Rochelle Dornay, and she is just dogged at when the phone rings over the Department of Veterans Affairs and Rochelle's on the other end, they jump. Debbie Merrill, who's here from my Washington office, is one that pushes Rochelle and myself to make sure that all the details are addressed. And Alec Arago, who follows the daily back and forth with the veterans here locally in my district office. But if it wasn't for Ralph Vielas and Abel Jones and Jack Stewart and Jim Bogan and Jan Parks, those people were on the phone with me all the time through every detail, helped Jimmy Panetta and Jason Burnett raise the money and give them ideas about how to do that, we wouldn't be here today. So this is really a happening. And it's a happening because the people of our community got together, decided what they want, and wouldn't let go. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for beginning a new history the new chapter in military history in the Monterey Bay Area. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I must be doing something right. I've been here 3 times. I asked for invites, and you invited me 3 times, so I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I don't know how many of you have ever given a speech, but you know, when you write a speech, and I wrote this speech three weeks ago, and I thought about what I was going to say, and then I met a bunch of people today and totally changed my mind. I said, well, out with the speech. I met a young lady, and I said, the typical New Yorker that I am, I said to her, how you doing? She said to me, I'm happy. And that's what I see out here. Everyone is happy. We had some hiccups along the way, yes we did, but you know what? We worked through it. We worked through it, and look at the results. This is beautiful. Flew in yesterday, grabbed the car, Tom Packlet, project manager and I on my team, and we drove directly here. Fantastic. This is fantastic. Before I begin, I would like to also welcome uniformed service members, my fellow veterans, families, veteran service organizations, and distinguished guests. I would like to take a moment to recognize all of our veterans and family in attendance today. Thank you for your commitment and service. Thank you so much. Especially to the families. As a retired U.S. Army First Sergeant, I can honestly say and know how much the family means to your soldier. Sons, daughters, and so forth. You kept us going, and we really, really appreciate it. Please keep up the good work. On behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs, Secretary Bob, as he's called, Secretary Bob McDonald, National Cemetery Administration, Interim Undersecretary Ron Walters, myself, and my team, I'm honored to be here with you today at this dedication ceremony. Congratulations on reaching this milestone. The foundation for all our efforts for 2016 and beyond is ensuring a veterans focused for work. This dedication ceremony is keeping with the commitment and the My VA initiative launched under the leadership of Secretary Bob. On September 15, 2015, me and our team's project manager, Tom Packlet, we attended the groundbreaking ceremony. At that time, I pulled Tom aside and I said, this is fantastic. Look at the amount of people are here for this. This is the biggest crowd that I've seen. But not only that, what was remarkable was that everyone was smiling. Everybody was happy. There's that word happy again. Everybody was happy. You were all in years before that day. And you and your state leadership, their staffs, CalVets, federal leadership and their staffs, and others stayed the course to make this dream a reality for our veterans and their eligible family members. We have a strong partnership here in California. You have all worked very hard to make this day a reality. That moment, this day, has finally come. And you have my sincere congratulations as we dedicate your new state veteran cemetery. Today we have 135 national cemeteries providing perpetual care to 4 million veteran service members and their eligible families. 38 years and over 665 million later, and with your veteran cemetery joining the ranks, there are now 105 veteran cemeteries in 47 states, Guam and Saipan, with 4 more under construction. Our veteran cemeteries, whether in flyover territory, or in the heart of Brooklyn, New York, where I come from, are important for several reasons. They offer a focal point for remembering those who have worn the cloth of our nation. Moreover, they provide a permanent record for future generations to learn that freedom isn't free. Each one of those niche covers will tell a story. They will display the names of fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, brothers and sisters that will be inurned in these hallowed grounds. Although their stories will be different, one thing will be constant: they served with dignity and respect. Through your hard work, you have ensured their heroic sacrifice will never be lost and made it possible for those born long after them to benefit from their proud example. These are our veterans that will be laid to rest in these hallowed grounds. Please continue to honor them the best way we know how. And that was clearly evident when I came yesterday. There were people putting up chairs. They were scurrying around. They had that smile on their face. There's that happiness again. They were working together to make this happen. That's what it's all about. Teamwork. Some say they have the best job in the world. I know I have the best job in the world, still serving veterans and their families. I love it. Your cemetery and your veterans laid to rest here are entrusted to good hands. I have no doubt that the staff here will treat each as their own. To all staff, I say thanks for the task you honorably embark on. I would like to leave you with a quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So please, please take care of our veterans and their families. I sincerely thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be with you this morning and your commitment to serving and honoring our veterans. Thank you all very much.
Thank you to our speakers, clearly, not just for your words, but for your work. We will now have the formal interment of Major William Williams. At this time, please remain seated as we prepare to start the service, which will begin briefly with military funeral honors by the California State National Guard Honor Guard. To direct and preside over this interment, I introduce to you Daria Mayer, the manager of the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. Daria.
Good morning and welcome, family, friends, and guests. We gather today to honor the service of Major Bill Williams and to remember his wife, Maria.
Let me again thank everybody who worked together on this project and never gave up. I thank all of you for joining in this day of ceremony, making the opening of this now hallowed ground, the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery. Right now, there are other celebrations planned for the remainder of the day, including a reception at the Seaside Oldemeyer Center immediately following this event that all of you are invited to. As you leave, please respect and depart in reverence for those who will come to occupy this cemetery for final resting. May God bless the souls interred in this cemetery, our veterans and their families, those standing watch around the globe, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.